Astronauts to the moon.
What's going on, everyone? Jeranism again, back with another video for you. Wanted to talk a little bit today about why we shouldn't believe or trust what we're told. And it's a good video. It's going to show you a little bit from Bill Nye, where he supposedly proves gravity from a video back in the 90s, 80s, not really sure. And just kind of wanted to cover who is telling us to trust them, and does it happen to be known liars? And if that's the case, then why are we trusting them? Is it people who are known killers, perhaps Masons, Nazis, Satan worshippers? Would you want to trust them?
Some men aren't looking for anything logical, like money. They can't be bought, bullied, reasoned, or negotiated with. Some men just want to watch the world burn.
Of course, the group I'm talking about is NASA. Your friends and mine over there in Florida, launching these wonderful rocket ships that cost millions and billions. Are they doing us a favor, or are they doing themselves the favor? That is what we need to ask. To me, it's easy to see that NASA tells lies. And as an example, I want to show you a quick little video that's Bill Nye talking about his desire to go to space. And my question is, why wouldn't NASA send Bill Nye to space? Wouldn't it be awesome? Somebody who everyone respects, somebody everyone grew up with, send him to space and let him tell us what he sees. Unless, of course, you've been lying about what you see. In that case, you would not send Bill Nye to space, because he's going to come back with a different opinion of the science that he preaches. So just take a listen.
And NASA has gone to great lengths to develop that business. It's all good. It's all good. I would go to space like that. I applied to be an astronaut 4 times. I would love to get a view of the Earth from space.
We all would, Bill, but that's unfortunately reserved for a few select individuals.
And right now the price is $200,000. It starts to come down into a tenth of that. I could imagine doing it.
$200,000. That's it. What are my tax dollars going to if NASA cannot afford to put Bill Nye in space where he can see the Earth and come back and tell us all what he saw, or take a camera with him, take some pictures? Unless NASA is afraid of people who, how do I put it, tell the truth.
If you've never jumped out of a plane with a parachute, that is cool. I don't do it full time, but I get it. It's exciting. And you do see the world in a new way, and you're in the air. Everybody's dream is to be able to fly. You're flying for a few moments. I get it. I can see how people get hooked on that. And I think space exploration would be the same deal.
And now, why exactly would you get such a different view of the Earth when you jump out of a plane? Possibly because it's nothing like what NASA shows the vast majority of us. Possibly because you see it as an endless plane, completely flat. Interesting thing to think about. Another thing is simply, who is it that becomes astronauts with NASA? I wanted to do some research on this, and so I looked it up and was surprised to see that out of their entire fleet, 199 astronauts were from the military and 134 were civilians. So I said, okay, I thought that it was quite a higher percentage of military, and that was the excuse I was using as to why they all seem brainwashed, or possibly they have taken such an oath, the military oath, that they hide the truth from us. So I did some research. You can actually get this from the link in the description. It is a spreadsheet of every astronaut that NASA has ever employed. Now let me preface this with the same thing I always say, which is, do not believe me. If you just trust in what I say, that's what got us all in the problem we're in, trusting other men without doing our own verification. So please follow this up, look into it, download the spreadsheet yourself and do the same studies I did, and you will come to the same results. But let's take a look. So first thing I did was separated the spreadsheet by taking out the people who have flown for 0 hours or made 0 trips into space. They weren't important. I also eliminated the people who had no combined hours in space. You think those would match, but they don't exactly, so remove them. Then you'll see the column that's marked military or civilian, which seems like it would be easy, but you'll notice in the column I circled on the right that it also says, if military, include details. And I noticed right away that some of these civilians had military details. So that seemed a little bit confusing, but I was able to quickly eliminate those who were only military, leaving myself, as you can see here, with only civilians. So once you have a list of just civilians, you can, like I did, start highlighting the people who were civilian but also had military details, which seemed a little bit odd to me. Then you'll notice something strange. If you look here where I've highlighted in red, I saw a familiar name, Neil Armstrong. So I immediately said, he's not civilian. He was clearly in the military. If you go to Wikipedia, you will clearly see that the second line says, before becoming an astronaut, Armstrong was an officer in the U.S. Navy and served in the Korean War. So how is that person considered a civilian? Seems like somebody is telling me a lie. The next person whose name I was just kind of randomly selecting and going through each one was Paul W. Richards, Paul William Richards. So I went to his Wikipedia, and I saw that under early career it says Department of the Navy, Naval Ship Systems Engineering Station, 1983 to 1987. Then transferred to NASA Goddard Space Flight Center in 1987. So again, how is this person a civilian? Now, I have nothing against military. I have family in the military. But I do have something against people who have taken an oath to abide by their commanding officer's rules or their commanding officer's commands. And believe me, these people have something to fear. If you just take a look at anybody who's ever gone against the government and spoke out against them, a lot of things can happen to you. And one of those being you end up in a body bag. So I can see why some of these people are afraid to speak up. But if everyone who they're saying is a civilian is actually military, then we've got an issue. The point is, should we be trusting in people who lie to us? And hopefully your answer to that is no, we shouldn't. And just because 90% of the world thinks NASA is so great does not mean that we should trust them if we can find clear facts and very clear deception. So next random selected name was Fred Hayes Jr. I looked him up, brought up his Wikipedia, and it says that he would have been the 6th human to land and walk on the moon, but the mission had to be aborted due to spacecraft failure. He is one of only 24 humans to have flown to the moon. And further down in his early life, education, and flight experience, it states that he was a Boy Scout and earned the rank of Star Scout, and that he was eligible for the draft and was originally apprehensive of flying. So he joined the Naval Aviation Cadet Training Program, where he underwent naval aviator training from 52 to 54 and served as a U.S. Marine Corps fighter pilot at Cherry Point, North Carolina from 54 to 56. He had accumulated 9,300 hours of flying time, including 6,200 hours flying in jets. So he gets out of the military and goes back to school and then becomes a NASA pilot or a NASA astronaut, and they consider him civilian. Does that make any sense to anyone? So even though I was starting to kind of get the picture, I went a little further, looked up the next random person. I looked up Carl Hennies, again, listed as a civilian. And down in education, it says that he attended primary and secondary schools in Ohio. And then due to the war, he elected not to finish high school, instead entering the V-12 Navy College Training Program. So he did that, in which he became a member of the U.S. Naval Reserve, reaching the rank of lieutenant commander. This man was clearly military, taking the military oaths. This is not a civilian astronaut. Yet another lie. And I also pointed out in my WTF moment that he was killed or died on Mount Everest while doing a project for NASA, in which it states that the purpose of the expedition was to test for NASA a meter called the Tissue Equivalent Proportion Counter, the TEPC, testing at different altitudes of 17,000 feet, 19,000 feet, and 21,000 feet. It states that the point of the mission was to see how people's bodies would be affected at that height from radiation. Now, is this confusing for anybody? This is well after they've already been to the moon. don't we know and understand how radiation affects human beings? They went right through the Van Allen belts and had no problem. Why are we sending people to mountaintops to test radiation? Does anybody realize that is about 4 or 5 miles? The ISS is flying 250 miles from Earth. An airplane flies at 5, 6, 7 miles above Earth. So what are we sending people up to the top of Mount Everest for to test 21,000 feet? We should be well beyond that. And it just so happens that when they were testing how his body would react to radiation, the poor man died. It also says at the end, despite Hiniz's untimely death, the expedition had done its job. Well, thank you, NASA. And when the TEPC was later analyzed by NASA headquarters, an increment was added to the human psychology database. What the hell does that mean? Long story short, he was dead. Did they kill yet another astronaut? Who knows? I'm not going to say that, but regardless, the facts are that they're liars. Right away from just checking a few names on my initial list of the civilians, you'll see all those yellow marks are civilians who are actually military, and I gave up. If you want to go through the entire list yourself, go ahead. But I could tell you right now, the 134 or whatever civilians that they claim were astronauts will dwindle down to 20 or 30 if we're lucky. So now taking a look at some images here, you'll see a nice little track as this man draws the moon onto a big screen, and we wonder, I wonder where we got the images of the lander as it slowly lowered to the moon. Take a look at this picture. This is the practice module that they used on Earth to help them practice landing on the moon. Does this look anything like that tinfoil covered LEM that they used? How could this even help them? And if you want to know the real truth, is that not once was any member of NASA able to land this on Earth. Yet we went to the moon 6 times, landed perfectly, no issues, nobody's ever died. This was the inside picture of the LEM. Yeah, sure. All those buttons right there, I'm sure they knew exactly what they were doing with the technology in 1969 and the memory of a TI-82 calculator. I'm sure all that was really programmed to do what they say it did. And if you want to believe that, go right ahead. Trust in what men tell you, which clearly is not the truth. Another image of the supposed lander. Again, you've seen the pictures of the moon. You've seen the LEM that has landed there. That they can't show us now, even though we have satellites out there. They could easily send a satellite to orbit the moon and take images of the rover, which is still there, the landers that are still there, the land sites. No, they don't show us that. Why? Because they're not there. There is nothing on the moon. There is no way to show us that men have ever been to the moon because they've never been there. This is clear. Again, believe what you want. Do your own research. And if you come to the conclusion that we've been there, you are crazy. This image here, you've seen pictures of where the camera was on the astronaut's chest. How is this picture taken? The astronaut cannot bend at the waist. Remember that. So how did he get over? This would be hard for me to do, and I'm not wearing astronaut gear. Yet they say this picture was taken on the moon and from the chest of one of the astronauts. That's crazy talk. Next image you see is a nice picture that one of the astronauts left on the moon, wrapped in cellophane of his family. Now tell me, the temperature on the moon ranges between 250 degrees above zero, 250 degrees Fahrenheit. You're telling me this wouldn't melt on the moon? So we just left a photograph wrapped in cellophane on the moon, 250 degrees temperature, and it's still going to be sitting there? It's a joke. The whole thing is a complete and total scam, and the fact that it's been believed this long is really a travesty to human intellect, for lack of a better way to put it. This next image is, I don't even know what it is or care what it is, but why do we have to keep seeing these round windows? Does anyone else see that? They're clearly taking the picture out of a round window to give you the impression that you're looking at a globe. You're not looking at a globe. It's a scam. It's a lie. Again, by our friends at NASA. Next is an image of the ISS. And if you think that people are inside of that structure, flying above or around the spherical Earth, I suggest you drink less than 10 bottles of wine a day. It might help you see things a little more clearly. Another funny image of an astronaut on the side of some tin can with the Earth kind of in the background and those beautiful solar panels that look as real as a drawing at best. It's sad that I've got to argue with people about this being believable. Yes, I'm sure this astronaut was really just out floating in space. This is just pathetic. Really, really sad that 95%, I wouldn't even venture a guess how many percent of people believe this, trust this. NASA, they're good, they're great, they're fantastic, they're scientific, they're factual, they're liars, and they have fed us with bullshit for 50 years.
We interrupt your regular broadcast to bring you this important news bulletin.
Hello everyone, this just in. The item that you definitely used today that has now been directly linked to cancer. But that's on tonight's news. Right now, we've got space news, starting off with SpaceX, who launched another fake rocket today, and Elon Musk stumbled over some words while making $500 million. Fantastic. On to NASA. Yeah, NASA got some bad news from the UOLAF, the UOALAF, or the Unified Organization Against Liars and the Freemasons, who told NASA that they must change the acronym for NASA. It's no longer National Aeronautics and Space Administration. So coming up right now, we will have my favorite 10 ideas for a NASA acronym. But we also decided to do our first ever subscriber challenge. Yeehaw! And so how will this work? Very easily. It will end next Sunday, June 7th at exactly 6 p.m. Pacific time. The prize is a $25 Starbucks gift card. And to enter, you just need to be a subscriber of Jeranism, the YouTube channel, and you need to make a comment with an acronym for NASA. If you want to make 50, then you would need to make 50 comments. Do not put multiple acronyms in the same comment, because the winner will come from the one comment that gets the most thumbs up. Make sense? All right, here we go. Enjoy my 10. Hopefully I'll give you some ideas for yours. And next Sunday I'll do a video of all the different ones. I'm sure there'll be some hilarious ones. But for now, it is time for Top 10.
Number 10.
Neurological, anacathartic, scientific, anonymous.
Number 9.
Negative alogism, spherically altered.
Number 8.
Homogeneous association of sciolist atheists.
Number 7.
Innocuous assembly of sphere adorers.
Number 6.
Numerous astrologers spreading anachronism.
Number 5.
Non-operational allegiance of scientific amateurs.
Number 4.
Never accurate space artists.
Number 3.
Neolithic association of satanic astrology.
Number 2.
Numerable ass clowns scamming Americans. And finally,
Number 1.
Nazis and super annoying. Thank you very much. I look forward to some of your submissions and the video next Sunday that will include them all. And now on to more Bill Nye as he talks with everyone's favorite atheist, Mr. Bill Maher.
I just tell you, it took a lot of concentration.
But listen, here's the thing. 46% of Americans believe the story of Genesis is true. So I just
It's
want...
amazing. It's
I know,
astonishing.
I know, that the world was created in 6 days. Just give because we're not scientists, just give us the simplest answer you can, the first 2 or 3 things that come to your mind, why the world is not 6,000 years old.
Bill Maher seems to think that there's 2 choices. Either you believe 4.55 billion or you believe 6,000. And I think he needs to be a little bit more accurate, that 46% of Americans probably use their brains and know that when you say 4.55 billion years old, because you can date rocks, that you must then also smoke those rocks when you call your dating a fact. It is a guess, nothing more.
Well, they're trees.
Trees.
Within a few hours' drive of here that are older than 6,800 years. The bristlecone pine.
Oh, good. There's trees that are 6,800 years old. Like 4.55 billion years old? Or did he say 6,800 years? Well, let's see some 6,800-year-old trees. Sweet. I love science. And we get to go on a field trip to see the bristlecone pine trees and Methuselah, which is the oldest tree, at 4,800 years old. I thought he said 6,800.
There, you go drilling ice in Antarctica, Greenland, you'll find hundreds of thousands of layers of snow ice. I mean, right there. Why would you go any farther?
Oh, that explains it. See, I thought we couldn't go to Greenland or to Antarctica. I was wrong, and little did I know, I mean, my bad, I had no idea about layers of snow ice. And I'm such a clown. I really had no idea that there was so many layers of snow ice. 4.55 billion. Fact.
But let me stop you there. See, because I think there's a very key thing here that we have to identify, which is the concept of something being counterintuitive. Oh, if this is not drilled into someone's head as a child, and it's not, certainly if you're homeschooled, you don't get this. So when you say this to a creationist, the tree is 6,800 years old, they go, I don't know. Why should I believe? I see it now. And you know, I shouldn't do that accent, because stupid people are everywhere.
Well, plus, I think, seriously, part of Mr. Ham's appeal is his accent. Seriously, that Australian accent. But what he and his people have done is used the word science in this new way. It's very much like the people who deny that smoking causes cancer and that there's climate change. And this is to say, you take what would be scientific uncertainty, plus or minus such and such %, and turn it into doubt about the whole thing.
No, Bills. I take your supposed idea of being able to date rocks as doubt about the whole thing.
But how do we know
since
the tree,
you weren't there,
how do we know the tree is 6,800 years old?
Prepare yourselves for science.
Well, you take a little stainless steel beautiful thing and you drill a little hole ever so carefully because you're from the Forest Service and you're very skilled, and you take it out and you count the little rings. This is what we did in the Boy Scouts.
I'm just...
It literally is.
Right, I know. I'm just saying, I watched this documentary that HBO had this week, Questioning Darwin, and I heard these creationists, they had a lot of creationists, and one of them said, well, when you talk about things that crawled out of the ocean and evolved into people, it just doesn't make sense to me. And again, you have to get into people's heads this idea that everything that seems right isn't. Some things are counterintuitive.
Some surprising, yes. It's not top down.
It's not.
No, that's a fundamental idea in evolution. I'm not kidding. It's,
right. And I heard a couple of times in the debate, somebody asked a question in the audience when they opened it up, and you said, "That's a great question. Like, where did consciousness come from? What happened before the Big Bang?" And you said, what you said was, "We don't know."
All right, finally, someone's being truthful. You don't know.
That's the crux of it. When they hear that, that's when they shit in their pants. The idea that we don't know. It scares some people.
It's trouble.
And every time you said it, Ken Ham would say, well, Bill, there's a book.
I got this book. Yeah,
there's a book. And he said that documents. Okay.
Yeah, I know.
It doesn't quite
So my concern, as I say, Mr. Ham and the grown-ups, they can do what they want. But my concern is for the students, for the kids in the Commonwealth of Kentucky and the environs there that are brought up with this, and then they're taught that, oh yes, people are going to oppose you. As you grow up in life, people are going to think that your views are wrong and unsupportable, and of course you are wrong and unsupportable. But
you could say that out loud, Bill.
But it's well, part of the thing that really in that situation, Bill, that was really, I think, difficult for me, and what I worked really hard on was not slapping my forehead, not freaking out.
And that's good, because I agree that we do have to engage people.
Yeah.
My great friend Richard Dawkins says, no, ignore them. And I say, not as long as they are a majority.
I know you're an intellectual and all, Bill. Last time I checked, 46% is not a majority. I could be wrong, Maybe I should ask a scientist.
You still have to engage.
Or a significant
Right.
fraction.
And also, here's another reason, is that, I mean, if people believe the world is 6,000 years old, I don't know if that hurts us. You know what does hurt us? People who don't think climate change is real.
Oh, man.
And these two issues are getting coupled together.
Yeah, they are.
They're getting coupled together. It's like, oh, you know, the eggheads on the coasts, they believe in evolution and, of course, global warming. And that does
It's Al Gore's fault.
And it's
that one guy.
That's right. And that's what's so cynical, is that people like Ted Cruz, you know, his big joke now is whenever it snows, you know, Al Gore told me this wouldn't happen. Just as a science person, please tell us why climate is different than weather and why scientists always predicted that bad winters would be part of climate.
Well, climate is the big picture. Weather is day to day.
Oh no, I smell more science coming.
Now, see, the big problem in climate science is trying to sort out this noise. You got all these data. It's warm, it's cold, it's warm, it's a hot day, it's a cold day. Trying to find the pattern. Well, now apparently people are able to statistically tie.
And apparently, I've never been on live television before, but apparently sometimes I don't watch the news because I'm a kid, and apparently Grandpa just gives me a remote after we watch the Powerball.
Heat events, extreme heat events, which are killing people in Texas.
And I guess by heat events he means the torrential downpour of rain that flooded the rivers and killed a few people in Texas this past week.
Killed people in Europe a
Australia.
few years ago, Australia. Tennis matches can't be played.
Right.
They're able to tie extreme heat events to climate change, which is I won't say a breakthrough, but it may be an expected result that you can prove statistically. The trouble is, statistics is hard.
Right.
It's not something you just do.
That's why you got to teach them when they're young. You got to get those basic fundamental scientific
This is my worship
ideas
words
in their head.
And this is why I'm really concerned.
Is it possible that Bill Nye forgot that we all watched his show as children? Is it possible that Bill Maher does not realize that we were all taught this stuff in school? They did put it in our heads at a very young age. I guess they think this is new. I'm confused.
If we raise a generation of students who is scientifically illiterate,
right,
we're not going to have the next iPhone.
Right.
We're not going to have the next innovation.
Because I see them, they take this so personally, the evolution thing. You know, it's not abstract to them. It's like, it's threatening.
That's
right. Not threatening,
don't tell
dumb.
me I evolved from an ape.
Well, actually, it's before that.
I am very different from an ape.
Doesn't it sound familiar, Bill? I don't want to say I came from an ape. You don't want to say you came from God. Same difference.
Okay, we give that to you. You are different than an
Somewhat
ape.
different, yeah.
Bill, thank you so much for enlightening us. Keep doing what you're doing. Bill Nye.
It's as if these guys have no idea that we all went to school. And in those schools, we were not taught creationism. We were not taught that we were created. We were not taught that there's a God. We were taught one thing and one thing only, science. Through our science books, through our tests, through our teachers, and through our tests. There was right and wrong answers. There was fact and there was opinion, and science was taught as fact. The fact is that schools were a form of slavery. They were meant to dumb us down. They were meant to get us to believe in their religion and in their beliefs, and they did a damn good job. Because look at the universities across the world, look at the intellectuals across the world, and it's very lucky that some of us have broken free and can see the truth. As an example, I have an interesting video for you. Let's go old school. Watch a little Bill Nye tell us about gravity, and then try and rationalize how they were just talking about how we need to learn this in school. We did learn it in school, and it doesn't make sense, and it's not true, and here's your proof.
Brought to you by Gravity. Feel the force.
You, me, the TV you're watching, and our home planet, the Earth, are all pulling on each other. That's gravity. And where I'm standing, this is down.
Thank you for recycling.
Everything, every piece of matter in the universe has gravity. And gravity always pulls. So big and massive is the Earth that it pulls on everything. It even holds the oceans on the Earth's surface. It pulls on the air we breathe. The pull is always toward the center of the planet. So no matter where you are on the Earth's surface, down is this way.
Now, granted, at this point, a few of us should have asked some more questions, but if you're like me, who always questioned that we were spinning, if you ever asked that in class, somehow it turned into a laughing fest at the person who asked the question, again, taught to us, and a way for us to believe in their religion of the spherical Earth. You ever think about what brainwashing with gravity would look like? I do.
What has gravity? Everything! What does gravity do? It takes away at ease.
Interesting. What has gravity? Everything! I guess that's the way they teach kids. Bill, don't you think there's a scientific experiment that could show us how the whole thing works? The sun, the earth, how the rotation works? Show me something.
Watch this. Look what I've done. Taken an ordinary sock, rolled it up into a ball. One sock, not two, one. Taken a piece of string, wrapped it around the sock, stuck it through this toilet paper roll, tied the string onto a plastic bag with an apple in it. Watch what happens. See the apple? That's like the sun. And the sock is like Earth. The string is kind of like the sun's gravity, holding the Earth in orbit.
Wait, this isn't working. We need something else. Put it back to the brainwashing. That seemed to work better.
What does the Earth have? Gravity! What does gravity do on Earth? One at a time. Keeps the moon in orbit. Makes leaves fall to the ground. Stops us from drifting off the Earth.
Even the poor drill instructor's head hurts after that.
Riding your bike, you're fighting gravity. And I'm not talking about going uphill either. I'm talking about staying straight up and down. See, gravity's pulling you straight toward the center of the Earth. It's the same thing that makes trees grow straight out of the ground. Gravity, it's all over the place.
Wait a second. Gravity is the force that pulls everything to the center of the Earth, which is the same thing that makes trees grow straight up out of the ground? Oh boy.
You are the weakest link. Goodbye.
Next, Bill Nye is going to do a little test to prove gravity. And why don't you guys play a little game with me? Replace the word gravity with God. Try it. Let's see if you can prove God in the same way.
The following demonstration was conducted under extremely precise conditions. Do not, I repeat, do not attempt this demonstration at home.
The pull of gravity isn't so strong that we can't raise our arms or anything, but it does pull on everything all the time. So if we're standing on the Earth's surface, it pulls us down toward the center of the Earth. Now we can test this. This is an old idea, but a good one. Watermelon. Carton of sour milk. Tofu. An old, I would say, ugly lamp. A computer. Sure. A bag of flour. And of course, old television. Sure enough, everything is pulled down by gravity.
There you have it, folks. Conclusive. Everything is pulled down by God. Isn't that amazing? Let's change the textbooks quickly. And now, Intellectual Scientific Thoughts by James. I often dream that I lived in a world where I could pretend I was an intellectual and just make everything up. Like saying that we all lived on a ball and that it was spinning. Oh, and flying through space. Oh, and through time. And on that spinning ball, some people lived upside down. Well, not really, but really. And water was attached to that spinning ball by a magical force. but it wasn't actually curved because my magical force made it flat. Because it's magic, and magic can do anything. And if you argued with my ball world, I would just laugh at you and call you stupid. I would never provide any evidence. Well, maybe I would provide an old image, say 35 years old, and just continue to force my ball theory down people's throats because I have magic, and with magic, you always win. Then I realized I had to wake up and live in reality, and not be such a lying, selfish, stubborn, cheating piece of shit. Well, everybody, that's today's show. Tune in next time as I dig deeper into the fallacies and the deceit put in front of us by our friends at NASA and the scientific community. Till then, I remind you all, don't lie to each other, and to open up your mind, because there's truth inside. This is Jaronism. Talk to you next time. Peace.